overheard about your conversation about a drinking culture, right? So do you know about drinking culture in Taiwan? In Taiwan? No? Not really. So will you associate drinking with the business setting in your culture? For instance, if you want to do the business with the partners, potential partners, or prospect partners, will you drink with them? No, yes. Yeah, sometimes. So where are you from? Gentlemen, not even. Germany, of course. So yeah, in Taiwan, I think it's kind of an informal way that if you want to build a very good relationship with the prospect partners, you serve them with, of course, the dinner, very good dinner, and with a very good drink. Okay, and drinking is always the key to set the business down, get the business done in Taiwan. Okay, informally. Okay. So I think that's very interesting if we can compare with different drinking culture. What about your culture?
It's the same. To build a relationship, we go out with our clients and we drink.
Yes, yeah, that's pretty similar here in Taiwan. But we normally don't drink in the morning. we do that at night. But I know in some of the cultures, especially Western culture, they drink in the morning, right? So that's different ways. And also, I think we have gender differences in drinking culture, even in Taiwan. Because drinking is much more normal for men in Taiwan. So if you a woman, you join a meeting with the other men, they are drinking, and I think most men, they would just ignore a woman over there. Okay, I don't know why. Some women, they're really good at drinking as well, but they just ignore the existence. Okay. So let's move on to culture about lecture about culture. We talk about a case about the cross-culture issue between the United States and Taiwan. Okay, let's move on to something more theoretical. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, culture is defined as a system that helps us to act in a certain familiar way. That's my own definition, right? And it is more akin to Professor Greg Hostev's definition proposed in 1980. It proposed that culture is something shared by members in a particular group, and individuals can learn culture from the group. And culture itself is kind of a consequence of an accumulation of learning process, and therefore it takes time to develop a tool. Okay. And in this regard, we can receive culture as a learned, shared, and enduring retention patterns in a society. Okay. And as you can see from the triangle in the slide, there are 3 levels. Essentially illustrate how culture is developed and distinguished from the other behavior. Basically, individuals carry out their minds into 3 levels of programming about how they interact with their environments. So at the bottom level, all human beings share certain biological reactions. For instance, we eat when we are hungry, we sleep when we are tired, etc. And these are universal basic human needs, and we understand this shared nature by shared behaviors by nature. Okay. And at the top level of this diagram, you will see that personal characteristics show the uniqueness of each person. And these personalities are inherited and learned, probably learned from your friends or your family. But you need to be aware that they are specific to individuals only. Okay. So culture occurs at the mid-level. That describes a collective phenomenon that is about elements of mental programming that we share with certain groups, certain others in a group. And as I emphasized earlier, that culture is learned and shared between individuals and their environments, especially interaction with their environments over a certain period of time. And culture is something that we often take for granted, not until we meet someone with the different cultural backgrounds. Okay. And so it essentially gives you some implication here that if you want to understand the culture, first of all, it takes a lot of time. Okay? And usually, the best thing is to learn the language first, because language contains all information about a specific culture. Okay, we're going to talk about languages, the role of language in cross-cultural communication later. Okay, and it also signals the nature of cultural differences can cross different groups, societies, different organizations. So we probably will learn about organizational culture in other courses beforehand. And also, not to mention about different countries have different national culture and even regions. Okay, and so far, you've known about different definitions of culture by scholars and also by myself, and also learn different characteristics of culture, right? But where does culture come from? How can we know if a culture exists? So the next slide will give you the answer. Okay, so this diagram illustrates the iceberg concept of culture using 3 layers of awareness. So including high culture, folk culture, and deep culture. And this diagram essentially tells you where this culture comes from. Okay, so you can see that above the water surface, certain characteristics of high culture are obviously visible, such as the fine arts, literature, dramas, music, and societies usually can be seen. Okay. But below the water surface, they are unseen to human groups. This includes the folk culture, such as the sense of humor, right? Different cultures have different sense of humor, cooking styles, religious, and also different dressing styles, as well as the deep culture that is under the sea. And this culture includes the conversational patterns, okay, concepts of beauty, right, and also different problem-solving, decision-making methods, etc. So let's take a few examples here. For the high culture, basically they can be seen by cultural metaphors, which are the distinctive traditions or institutions strongly associated with a particular society. So from the slides here, I give you just several pictures illustrating the various cultural metaphors around the world. Right? So I want to pose a question here that, can you tell us about what will be the cultural metaphors in your country, given that we have very diverse class here? For instance, we got two new participants today. What are the cultural metaphors in your country, in your culture?
Our music.
Music, okay,
Yes.
good.
We have soca music,
Mm-hmm.
which is very different from any other culture.
Mm-hmm.
Our food, our cuisine is also different.
Can you describe what kind of cuisine you offer?
Okay, so we use a lot of like
Can you
ground.
pass the microphone, please? Oh yeah, here.
Okay, so our cuisine is a fusion of African, French, and also British.
Mm-hmm.
So we incorporate all that into our food. So we use like ground foods, but also a lot of like spices, and we also use like potatoes, and it's just a fusion of like these three different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Our music, like I said, is very distinct to the Caribbean. It's soca with upbeat but African. So yes.
I think that's mainly resulted from you have mixed culture, right?
Yes, we have a very mixed culture.
Yeah, that's good. So what about you?
I'm French.
Yeah, what's the French metaphors?
Well, I would say the food, of course, because like France is known for like Italian dishes,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, and pastries too. So yes, that's the first thing I'm gonna think about. But,
Yeah.
like, what else? Maybe our history,
Mm-hmm.
monuments, like Eiffel Tower.
So I think cultural metaphor is something that you like to introduce to foreigners, someone who don't know about your culture.
Yeah,
right?
of course, definitely.
Yeah. What about Taiwan?
When we're talking about Taiwanese metaphors, the first thing to think about is the 大同 rice cooker, actually, because there's
Have you ever seen one? We have it's kind of an electric cooker, right?
Yeah.
Is it useful? Have you used it? Do you know that?
No, we're not accustomed to that.
But you've seen that in the dorm, right? So why do you suggest that a foreigner should know about the Datong electric cooker?
I think it's because the Datong electric cooker is actually, I've done a report about it, so I have to study its histories, and I find that it's very deeply rooted in Taiwanese culture, because it usually, in the old days, the Datong electric cooker represents a very the roots of Taiwanese spirit, and nowadays, although they are not actually can be seen everywhere, but it still represent the Taiwanese, especially when you're abroad, when you see a Datong cookers, basically like seeing the Taiwanese people, you feel like, oh, it's from my hometown, it makes you feel.
Yeah, I think this company that went international market quite early, during 1960s. Do you know which country?
70s.
Which country they went first?
I don't remember which country exactly, but I think they developed their branches in America first, and then the Europe, but it doesn't hit the home runs successfully.
Yeah, I think the first market I went to, that's really interesting. Of course, they set up a subsidiary in the States first, and they sell their rice cooker to Brazil. Okay, and that's really weird. But they thought that Brazilian customers would love their rice cooker, but I think it doesn't really fit their own culture. Okay, I think that's purely designed for the households in Taiwan. That I mean, older people are really good at how to utilize the rice cooker to cook the various dishes, right? For me, I only use that for rice. I don't know how to use it. Okay, I don't cook a lot. So what about your culture metaphor?
I got very mixed culture.
Yes, you have mixed culture background.
Yeah, I would say that like for my growing up cultures, I'm right Guangdong, so like I would say it's like dim sum, like
Pretty similar in Hong Kong, right?
yeah,
In the same area.
yeah, basically Hong Kong culture is like Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And I think language is also special, like where you differentiate Chinese from Guangdong people, they are we speak Cantonese. Cantonese, like,
Cantonese, yeah.
there was no way shorten as Cantonese, so it's different, and I think that I don't know, like.
I don't know if you have that feeling that when I first heard about Cantonese, so when Hong Kong people they talk with each other, I thought they are arguing because I don't know the language. Okay. But from their expression, I thought they are arguing, but actually they are just talking to each other very normally.
Yeah.
Can I ask you why?
I don't know, it's because the tongue is different.
Oh, different
they got
tongues,
more
okay.
tongues. Like they say that they got like 8 tongues. So in Chinese we mention only 4 different tongues. But they got 8 tongues. So like when you hear it, it's like a little bit different. So you hear a lot of like something that is in the middle of familiar and unfamiliar. So like it's totally different. But I think most of the Hong Kong people that believe that in Asian Chinese they speak Cantonese. So
Yeah. I mean, it's just how you learn different languages you understand. But when I first heard about Cantonese, I really thought they are arguing with each other.
and they speak very fast.
Yes, exactly, yeah. American culture? I think needless to say, I think we're familiar with American culture. We're so influenced by Hollywood movies, right?
I don't associate with American culture, but black culture.
I mean, yes, black culture is fine.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is through like our fashion and music. So a lot of, not all, almost all Western pop music or Western genres have descended from like black musicians. So that's something we're very proud of. So like our music, our styles, especially like streetwear, is like really rooted in black culture and dance.
Yeah, I think it's very iconic, right? Especially in rural area, right? Good. What about you?
So, Swedish culture, I would say like the first thing that came to mind is Swedish fika. It's like in the afternoon, around 3 o'clock, you have a cup of coffee and maybe something sweet on the side, like a cinnamon bun or something like that, or like chocolate ball. That's very like common, and even if you don't have the sweets at work, it's still like, it's about time.
So what about taking a lecture? So it's around 3 o'clock, so will you just went to go to get the sweets during the class?
Normally we have breaks like this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you can just see the line, and
Yeah.
wherever like the coffee stand is, it's very long. Yeah. So that's something that's like just overall like socializing over coffee.
Yeah, I think it's similar to British culture, right?
Yeah.
So we have this, you have the similar culture about afternoon tea, right? Or the tea break.
Yeah, it's not always like, this is quite fancy I would say, but every household has like some version of this, and we have to have kettle. So when we came here, we didn't have one of that, and immediately we were like, right, first thing we're going to buy is going to be a kettle so that we can have tea. And I think it's just, without having to say too much, it is a good way of bonding with other people. And like if you're sad, yeah, have a cup of tea. Happy, you want to chat, have a cup of tea. And it's just like a good way of relating to people without having to say too much of emotional stuff. So yeah, I think that is fairly, right, you got it exactly right.
Yeah. What about you're from the same country?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know.
Say language, since we common language is Swedish, it's the only country in the world with Swedish.
Yeah, I think that's a very good comment. But you're from Germany, right? So, Contemporary beer?
First thing, yeah, beer obviously. Another thing that came to my mind was car.
Mhm.
Germans love their cars. And it's like for some it's a ritual to just on a Sunday get up and polish and clean their car.
Mhm.
And then maybe also soccer.
Yeah.
It's a big sport in Germany. A lot of people play it in their childhood, and for a lot of people, it's a ritual to go in the stadium on Saturday and
Mhm.
watch the matches from their regional club. So there's a huge fan culture in Germany.
Yeah. And if you've been to Taiwan, you'll know that I think about the German cards. I think Taiwanese really love German cards. I don't know, because of the tax, right? We have added up around 3/4 of the tax when we import the foreign cards here in town, because we got very protectionist policy in Taiwan that want to protect our local companies from the foreign competition, especially for the car industry. But still, the Taiwanese consumption of the German car ranked the third in the world. We are a small island. We are so congested, and many people really love to drive German car, including myself. Okay? So I don't know why it's one of the typical culture in Taiwan. Okay. From the same country, anything to add on?
Work, I guess, is a very big part of your individual sense. Yeah. Like you very much identify with where you work. And
Do you have long working hours?
depends on the job.
Depends on the job. Okay.
Yeah. And also like this differs very much on what kind of jobs you're doing, and also the age bracket, like younger people would less identify with their job. But there's a very, I would say, common shift worker in a German factory who is like lives basically for their job. All their friends work in the same company. A lot of their the company will have a football club, and they will be at that football club or stuff like that. So I don't think this is something that a lot of countries do that way.
Yeah, I think that's really cool that the employees really bonded with each other because they have very many corporate activities, you know, the sports, maybe the social events, so on. Okay. What about you?
I have like a mixed cultural background, so I grew up in Russian households, but I'm born and I grew up in Belgium. Russian part that I'll leave out, but about Belgium, because previously we had, in my class I had Chinese exchange students. I only then started to reflect on what is Belgian culture. And so the few things are, Belgians eat extremely early, like dinner, because like once I went to Spain and their dinner is like from 9-ish.
Yeah. From 9.
Belgians eat dinner like at 5 o'clock.
Really?
At 5 o'clock in the evening, yeah. And so afterwards they don't snack, they don't eat, they're like more full and go to sleep. Also what we have is in university, it's quite common. It's actually the go-to lunch that you eat. It's like a sandwich of about 30 centimeters long. And so you have different kinds. And so it was so huge for the Chinese students because they were used to like a hot meal, and we were like, no, you eat the sandwich and then you go to classes. Another thing, the fries. Like fries are, if you buy fries and you buy on ketchup, that's considered a meal.
Yes.
And that's actually the first discussion which I had with my boyfriend, Belgian boyfriend. I was like, it's a starch bomb. This is not a meal. So, and maybe the last thing that is worth mentioning is the fact that Belgium is a very tiny country. I think it's a bit bigger than Taiwan, but we have 3 official languages. So the northern part speaks Dutch, or a version of that is Flemish. It's comparable with like Chinese and Taiwanese, because like Taiwanese has some different words.
Dialects,
and the pronunciation is a bit different.
Yes, of course.
Same thing. The south speaks French, and then after one of the world wars, we got like a little piece of Germany, so they speak German there. And so the absolute disgust that each language group has for each other is so fascinating. So the Flemish people absolutely hate the French because they think they're lazy. The French-speaking people hate the Flemish-speaking ones because they think they're so stern and cold and stuff like that. And Brussels is like a mixture of all that, and they have their own language. It's called Bruxellois. So the languages are quite fascinating.
Yeah, so you're just a small country. Of course, you're in Taiwan, but you have 3 different languages. So will you speak 3 languages at once?
I feel quite blessed because like we're
supposed to learn all three
Yeah.
in school. Actually four, because English is also
Yeah.
taught in school, and I chose a language course, so I had German too, but you can actually drop to German because it's like a little part. But an average Belgian who grows up in three languages and taught it for sure.
I think that's a very common, especially I think in the States as well, that you know, really huge country, you've got mixed culture. And like you just said, that you have a black culture, right? Of course, we have the Chinese culture there, of course. So they are quite distinguished with each other. They're living in the same country. They're speaking different languages. Of course, they've got common language, English. But the way of their communication is quite different. Okay. So, anything you want to add up? Oh, yeah.
I'm also from Sweden, so yeah, the Swedish speaker, I guess, very common.
Yeah. Anything to add up? Or they just explain everything?
I don't know, but like IKEA.
It's something like when you talk about Tony's metaphor, we talk about Taipei 101, right? It's kind of a landmark. It's a brand. Of course, in Taiwan we have very famous brand, Asus, right? The computer brand. But yeah, IKEA, I know. Talk about IKEA when we think easily with the Sweden, right? So that's a good example. Let's move on. So I think from a picture you know about what are the cultural metaphors. Like for instance, elephants. What would you associate elephant with? Which kind of culture? Thailand. Yeah, because elephant is kind of the very spiritual animals, tied with their religions. That is in Thailand. Okay. What about kiwis? Fruit, kiwis. Have you ever tried it? Kiwis. And I think most Taiwanese people here, they were so influenced by the advertisement from the New Zealand kiwis. So, yeah, we think about kiwis, they're definitely from New Zealand. Not to mention about the bullfight, right? Spain, right, of course. Okay, these are just few examples. Okay, let's move on to the other elements of the folk culture. It's about languages and mediums, okay? So languages is not only essential for cross-cultural communications, it is also provides insights into culture. Okay, like I just said earlier, even though we speak the same language, sometimes we have very different meanings and interpretations, right? So here I give you some example. This is very fun example in the UK. Okay, I don't want to make fun of UK, but I studied here for a few years, so I collected the data when I was worked with the British colleagues and supervisors. And this table was compiled by a group of foreign students, including myself. Okay, we started in the UK for a while, and we found that they have really different expressions. Okay, so the table was I highlighted three, the mostly received comments from a British supervisor. Okay, so when I heard about, for instance, the British people say that they're quite good. Okay, I think I'm good. They say I'm good, right? But the reality is that maybe they are express something that a little bit disappointing. I don't know why. Will you say that something is quite good? Is it really good?
I think it depends on the tone. Like I would say, yeah, it's alright.
Oh yeah.
It's not alright.
Yeah,
It's
not
alright.
alright.
I would say it's quite good.
Not good. Okay. And something that's very interesting. Okay. So for instance, when I was the time I did the presentation in the class, and my the lecturer obviously is British, and he told me that, well, I think that's very interesting. Okay. So I think they are very impressed by my presentation, right? In a sense, I think that I don't know what you are presenting. It's clearly nonsense. Okay. So he asked me to do the presentation again. Okay. And also, I personally got the most comments from my supervisors that only have few minor comments on your writing. Okay, I thought probably I am of overseas students, and he found some typos or grammar issues in my writing, but essentially he asked me to rewrite completely. Okay, so I figured it out several months, once I had a meeting with them. Every time he told me that I just have a few minor comments, okay, just revise it. And I thought just a few typos, but no, he actually asked me to revise completely so many times. Okay, so that's the example about language expression. Okay, then what about idioms? Okay, so idioms is something that refer to expression whose symbolic meaning is quite different from its literal meaning. Okay. So here are a few examples of idioms rather well. So let's take an exercise here. Let's start from the middle one, in Taiwan. Okay. When Taiwanese people say add oil and vinegar, you learn about Chinese class, right? What does it mean? Add oil and vinegar? Yes.
It means like you can do it more, right?
You can do more? No?
I mean like you got this. Like
No?
no, yes.
Not quite. Not really that meaning. Not from the literal meaning. It's something. If you learn about Mandarin, or especially in Taiwan, you heard about a lot of phrases. They are relating to the food. Okay, it's relating to your cooking. Okay, so add oil and vinegar. Probably you can get any answer. What does it really mean in Taiwan?
Okay, so the add oil and vinegar in Taiwanese, in Chinese called the 加油添醋. And when you tell something is add boil oil and vinegar, which means that it is probably over exaggerated or it was portrayed in a wrong way. So
Yes.
it is basically you can understand it as it's not the truth and you need to understand it more.
Yeah, it means that you exaggerate too much. Okay. Yeah. For instance, many people like to gossip, right? And in Taiwan, we'll say that don't add oil or vinegar. It means that don't exaggerate too much. Don't gossip. Okay. It's not the truth.
Is that like, do you like make food taste like better with like oil and vinegar? Like, is that where it comes from? Like,
I think it comes from, yeah, can you explain that?
I think it 加油添醋 is actually comes from. It's not that it doesn't have a really have a background story behind it. It's just because we will think that if you put too many oil and vinegar in the food, it will become not truly or original.
It's not
to
tasty at all,
tasty.
yeah.
So yeah, we will add the oil and vinegar. So which means that if you over exaggerate it too much.
Yeah. Okay. So what about the first one? Anyone from Poland? I don't think so. But just give a guess. When they say that not my circus, not my monkeys, what does it mean? I think it's an easy one.
doesn't bother. That's not
Yes, that's not my problems. Okay. What about the second one? Yes.
Yeah, I would translate it more like keep your tail up like them. It's just like, don't worry. It's said in the context like if you have a lot of hardships and you want to like make
To encourage
to
someone
encourage the
not to
person
give up, right?
not to give up, you're like keep it up, and it's actually considered like the tail that you're talking about is a big snail for some reason.
Yeah.
So like the Russians imagine like a big snail because like if you look at the big snail, it's like quite funky, and so they're like, do good.
Yeah.
It'll be alright.
Yeah, it's true. That just encourage someone not to give up. This is how the phrase means. Okay. What about the fourth one? The Brazilian people said peel the pineapple. I think that's an easy one as well. To peel a pineapple, what does it mean? Do you know what is pineapple?
You don't peel a pineapple.
Yes, you don't peel the pineapple, but if you do, what does it mean? Is it easy to peel the pineapple?
No, you cut.
Yes.
Isn't that something like
Wasting
Mission
your time?
Impossible?
Planning after planning.
Yes, exactly. It means that you deal with a very complicated problem. Yeah, it's really hard to solve the problem. Okay. And the final one, Saudi Arabia, when they say I don't have a camel in the caravan, you know, camel is a very important asset in their culture, right? So when they say I don't have a camel in my caravan, what does it mean? I'm poor? No?
Well, is it in my caravan or like the caravan? Like if there's like a caravan passing and like it's not, it doesn't affect me. Like
Yes, that's the correct answer. The matter doesn't concern me. It's not my business. It's not my caravan. It's in the caravan. Okay. So So these are the few examples. So there are around there are many expressions. They are actually idioms in their own culture. People often say, but if you don't understand their own culture, when you first heard about it, you probably don't understand that. So that's called idioms. Okay. So move on to the final one. Okay. So unlike the cultural metaphors and languages which can be observed and seen, okay, I think the last one, about a cultural element is usually unseen. It's called stereotypes. Okay, stereotypes means that generalization about a group of people, they may or may not be the truth. And in the textbook, okay, they actually done a survey to Americans. Sorry about that, they did a lot of survey to Americans because the text was written by 3 American professors, okay. And it talked about something about stereotype. They found that most Japanese are usually being reserved and humble, and Chinese tend to be group-oriented. It's kind of echoing what you just said in the very beginning. And British tend to be cold and detached, and Saudi Arabian are conservative. Okay. Do you agree with them? Well, that's stereotypes, right? So another funny example I'm going to show you is it's kind of echoing what I just said about the mixed culture in the States. Okay. So there are 2 people that are meeting with each other. They, of course, they are the second generation American, but they have different regional culture and backgrounds. And they have stereotypes towards each other, and we'll see that what's happening next.
Japanese or Korean? No, I was leaning more towards Korean. I'm sure. So, I actually really like teach. Oh, well, it's my grandparents are from
I think your people's relationships are
I know this sounded a bit small, but probably you can understand the story, right? There are 2 people, right, second generation American. They, in the same country, they even have stereotypes towards each other because they have different cultural backgrounds, especially the region of the country, right? And so this indicates that cross-cultural analysis should not be purely focused on a national level, because most of our, especially for the IB research, we usually just use country or nation as the only basis to talk about cross-cultural differences. But in practice, we need to note that cultural differences essentially occur across different levels, different regional, different organizations, and even individuals. Okay. And speaking of the stereotypes, okay, does anyone like to share with us your experience of stereotypes in any context? Do you have any stereotypes experience? Or you're being stereotyped by others?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the first impression, though, if I'm from Africa.
Oh.
Yeah, like no, I'm from the Caribbean, right? So like, not all close-skinned people like me from Africa, you know, we're all over. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's good. So you got this stereotype in Taiwan?
Yes, in Taiwan,
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
that a lot. Like, you're from Africa.
True. What about others? Any stereotypes? Yes.
About the Russian part, funnily enough, very often, because my family is from like deep Siberia, so it's like far away Russia. They ask like, oh, dude, that's where there's a big vodka.
Mhm.
The funny thing is, like, every summer when I went there, there was a bear alarm. Like, there are bears on the road. If you want to meet one, you have to go there. So people, like, ask it funny, but I'm like, yeah, no shit, I ate a bear and I saw a bear on the road. So, like, the stereotypes match in some ways.
Yeah, true. What about Taiwan? Do you have any stereotype experience?
Yeah, when I was in London like 3 or 4 years ago, I went to a store to shop for my 2 weeks, and when I was about to leave, a clerk just suddenly and say, "Oh, I hope you have a nice day," and then he gave me a namaste like this.
Oh, okay. So why do you think that he did that to you?
I don't know, maybe all Asians look like this hair.
Okay.
Yeah, we all have the black hair and a little bit yellow
But a
skin.
gesture like this is kind of a greeting. I think in Thailand, right?
Yeah, especially in Thailand.
Yeah, especially in Thailand, they do this because they kind of related to their religions as well. They show their respect and their, I think, gratitude, especially for the elder people. Yeah.
And my friend received a konnichiwa and arigato in the end.
Yes. Yeah, just pretty similar situation. I think you encountered that. They can't really distinguish where we come from, especially for Asian people. We have yellow colors, right? So they don't understand at all. Okay, so that's stereotypes. Okay, so another example I'm going to show you is a typical rush hour. It's a real video picture by one of the commuters in China. Okay, and it's about the typical rush hour in the subway or metro station in China. And I want you to pay attention to the video when the train stops. It's really noisy, so that's why I turned down the voice. Okay, see a gentleman with the white shirt? Okay, so what happened? You've been pushed back, right? So I know it's hard to get on the train like this in China, especially in the rush hour, but unfortunately it's even harder to get out on the train, okay? And I mean getting away from the train is nearly impossible, okay? You need to try to use your elbows to try to squeeze your way, okay? And from the example here, you might think that the Chinese, if you don't understand the Chinese culture, just see from a video like this on YouTube. You see Chinese are really tough and cold-hearted people, right? They don't care about other people at all. Okay? But if you really understand the Chinese culture, you will know that Chinese value the interpersonal relationship in utmost importance in any circumstance, especially in the business settings. Okay? So if you don't build a very good relationship with them before and before the deal, then they won't bother to do business with you. So that's why whenever you talk business with the Chinese, you try to make friends with them in the very beginning. Okay. So this is how the stereotypes can cause a problems in cross-border relationship and communicating with the people with different culture. Okay. So by now, I think we finished the discussion on first question today's lecture about the definition of culture and where does it come from. Okay. And before we move on to the next question, here's a course announcement, especially on X-Culture. Okay, I think I explained it last week, but since we're approaching the starts of the project, there are some few things I want to remind you. So this project lasts up about 10 weeks. Okay, it's designed to offer you a valuable opportunity to work in a full virtual team setting. So roughly about 5 to 6 people per team. They are from different universities around the world. And currently, I've been told that we have 4,200 people, students registered in these activities right now. Okay, so I'm expecting that there will be a huge, a lot of things will going on. Okay, you will meet people with different cultures, different countries as well. And in the project, you need to complete a business proposal for the real client organization, and in the process, experience the cross-cultural challenges. Obviously, you need to interact with their teammates, but they do all day virtually online. Okay, And you need to know that participating in this project is very demanding. Okay, roughly about 2 or 3 hours per week outside the class. Okay, and you need to complete your tasks. I don't think I want to repeat again, as you can see on the slide, and also study the course syllabus. A lot of work you need to do. Okay, and I know you still have a week about time to think about the final decision on the course selection, especially according to the NTU regulation. You can drop in and add on a course within a week time. But if you are 100% sure to be registered in the course and participate, fully engaged in the project, please now fill in the S-Culture enrollment sheet. I think I've uploaded onto the Google Classroom notes until your call, or maybe you can scan the QR code on the slide. Okay, you will be linked to a Google form. Okay, so you just type in your personal information regarding your full name, because I need your full name to be stated in the certificate once you finish the project, and also your most used contact email. Okay, it's because the organization is gonna use the email to contact you. Okay, and if you really understand the project, you want to fully engage, write information on that. Otherwise, I would suggest you think about that and try to enroll in later. Okay. Any questions for the projects? Yes.
Will we be assigned teams, or do we have to form them ourselves?
You will be assigned in a team. Okay. That's how we make sure that there will be a diverse group each team. Okay. And let's move on to the question 2. Into the next lecture, that why culture differ and persist, and how to measure culture distance. Okay, and because we know that culture is manifested by people through their interaction with their environments, when people hold different culture and when they hold their own culture to judge others' culture, there are chances of cross-cultural conflicts and misunderstanding. This is essentially the so-called ethnocentric orientation towards culture. Okay, so there are 3 types of cultural orientation stated in the textbook. The first one is called ethnocentric orientation. Obviously, it is really harmful to international business. Nowadays, many international business, or especially multinational enterprises, they transfer their own managers to foreign subsidiaries. And if this manager holds ethnocentric orientation, then there must frequent cross-cultural conflicts and miscommunication between the foreign managers and the local employees. Okay. And to avoid such cross-cultural risks, many multinational companies nowadays train their managers to either have polycentric or geocentric orientations while working in the foreign countries. So polycentric means that the people adopt and use the host country mindset to conduct businesses. For instance, when foreign managers go to their subsidiary, for instance in China, and they might fully adopt and use the Chinese culture to interact with their clients, suppliers, and even to interact with their subordinates. Okay. And on the other hand, geocentric orientation means that people are open-minded to conduct businesses without regard to country boundaries. Okay, so this is quite common in the international business environments, such as in the United States or in the UK, most of the Western culture, where their constitutional workforce is diverse and vibrant. Okay. And in truly globalized working environments, I think it does not work if one only holds polycentric or orientation to not only one type of culture to interact or conduct businesses. Instead, he or she must be open-minded to embrace all kinds of culture embedded in their environments. So that's, I think the third one, geocentric orientation, is much preferred when we really work in multinational companies. Okay. And to be more specific, cross-cultural risks essentially refers to a situation or an event in which a cultural misunderstanding puts some human value at stake. That's a definition from the textbook. Okay, and but think about it. How do we know that how far or how much difference between your own culture and others' culture? Okay, and how can you assess the cultural differences or so-called cultural distance in the international business context? So there are several approaches. Okay, here is the most simple one. I think they kind of distinguish the work culture by a dichotomous classification. Okay. So this method proposed by Professor Apple Hall back in 1976, he distinguished the high context culture from the low context culture. Okay. So high context culture countries such as China and Japan emphasize nonverbal messages and view communication as a means to promote smooth, harmonious relationship. especially in the Japanese culture. I don't know if you ever been to Japan or you have any interaction with the Japanese friends. Anything? Yes? So what do you think about their culture?
Too polite.
Too polite? Way too polite. Okay.
Too much rules. Like when we visit them, like a lot of minutes email communication.
Yeah. Have you ever heard about the Japanese people saying no?
No, they won't.
Yes.
Like, actually, they would not say no. Like, you have to understand by yourself that, like, it is a no. But, like, they will not say.
Yeah.
They're going to say maybe, I don't know, but, like, no.
Yeah. Just think about another personal example. When I studied in the UK on master degree, and during a lecture, of course, there was really bored. And there is a really cute guy, Japanese, sitting just next to me. And I asked him that whether or not he'd like to get a drink after the lecture with me. Okay. I think it's really pretty obvious. Okay. And instead of saying something to me, he say, just wait a moment. I need to discuss with my friends. Okay, and during the lecture break, he went to discuss with a group of another Japanese. And when he returned, he said, they told me that I can go with you. What? I don't know what to respond back then, you know? It's a really simple question, yes or no. Okay, why couldn't you just answer my question, yes or no, right? And but when you realize that Japanese culture, they really don't like put themselves in a disagreement situation. Whenever they have a disagreement, for instance, in a business setting, they will not say no, even though they clearly don't like your proposal. They will say something about, let me think about it, or maybe let's discuss it further. Something very indirect to say no. But you heard about this in about Japanese culture, you will know that they don't like your offer. Okay, so this is Japanese culture. So they belong to the high context culture group. Okay, and this kind of culture, they prefer indirect and polite face-saving style and emphasize a mutual sense of care and respect for others in business settings. And they don't like to be offensive to others and believe in trust, especially in Chinese context. Okay, and this explains that most Japanese people hesitate to say no, just as I said earlier. And even if in a situation of disagreements, they will say something else. Okay, and basically in most Asian culture, I believe so. Showing impatience, frustration, iteration, even anger to disrupt the meeting, harmony in a group is really considered to be rude or not welcome. Okay? Even though you dislike with each other, you still need to show your politeness with each other in front of a business meeting. Okay? And to succeed in the Asian culture, I think it's critical to have the keen eye for nonverbal signs and body languages. Okay? Not only the language expression, because often in this type of high context culture, they don't express their true meaning through the conversation. They are expressed maybe through their eye contact or body languages, etc. But on the other hand, a low context culture countries such as Germany or United States, they rely on elaborate verbal expression, okay, putting great emphasis on spoken words. And the primary function of the speech in such culture, I think, is to express their ideas and thoughts clearly as much as possible, and try to be logical at all times and convincing at all times. And communication always very direct and explicit, and meanings are always very straightforward, okay, compared with the low context culture. And low context compared with high context culture. And low context culture, like I just said earlier, that Germany and American, they tend to value expertise and performance and conduct business or negotiation as efficiently as possible. What does it mean? For instance, if you had a negotiation, for instance, now you are setting on the price with the Chinese, usually they will talk something else first. For instance, how was your trip? How was your sleep last night? Do you want to have a cup of tea? Do you want to have the Tony sweets? Something else. And then we have the business later. But if you talk with the American, for instance, they will just get on the price in the very beginning because they want to finish the meeting as efficient as possible. Okay, so that's how the different culture meet with each other in the business setting. Okay. And that's the first approach. It's very simple to distinguish the high context and low context culture. And the second approach, or we say the most used approach in academia right now, is the positive cultural dimension, right? And I think you learn about this framework in other courses, right? Especially organizational behavior or human resource practices. So you know about Professor Greg Steve is a very influential Dutch researcher in the national and organizational culture. He had worked in IBM, the very famous company, for many years, and he started his research on the cross-cultural differences by distributing surveys to IBM employees with the diverse national backgrounds, and asked them to answer the cultural dimensional questions. So that's why he came up with the research finding. Okay. From his data, was compiled in an Excel file. I think I also uploaded the data onto those learning platforms. You can have a look on that. There's a different ranking of 6 indicators. So he gave every country ranking in these 6-dimensional cultural indices. The rankings are kind of comparative in a sense. And they, in fact, coming from survey results of IBM employees over the past years. And you can easily compare 2 countries with their rankings in different dimensional indicators. Okay, so I think let's take a break, okay? Then move on to briefly talk about each indicator. What does that mean, okay?